Welcome back to Passion Personified, a podcast series where we showcase student entrepreneurs and the life lessons they learn from it. On our third episode, we talk about the power of stories in mental health, life, and in business. We have a third-year student from SP, Maressa Tan. Yes, I got it right.
Good job.
How are you feeling? Ready to start this podcast?
Feeling good, feeling excited for today.
Okay. I'm very excited as well. This is the third episode we're doing. If you have if you have caught the first two episodes, you liked it, I think this will be your in for a treat today as well.
Hope you are.
Okay, so we're going to talk about your journey. I think right now you run a platform showcasing people's stories, specifically with regards to their mental health journeys, their tribute, their trials, how they overcome it. And it's just amazing. Like you of course invited me one time to share during your platform, and I really enjoyed it. And you have a vision potentially to make it into a platform where people can go to for support in future.
Definitely.
Yeah, but you didn't start that way, right? You started inverted commas as an accidental entrepreneur.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. I think today we will Dylan, when he was the previous one. I mean, of course, Dylan. The moment came out of his classroom, he's like, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
But yeah, it comes in different forms, like what Raphael said in the first episode. So I'm looking forward to discussing your story. So yeah, just a brief outline for you. We are going to talk about Maressa's origin story, why mental health is important to her, and then her unexpected jump into entrepreneurship, how she got started, and eventually the power of storytelling. How you can use storytelling in business if you're running a business, or in your life, or in your career. Storytelling is a huge part of life and central to a lot of our passions and whatever we want to do in future. Okay, so that's the outline for today. So let's begin with your origin story. Share with us, how do you come to recognize the need?
So I guess I've always been pretty passionate about mental health, even when I was, just a student. Even though maybe at the time I didn't know that I was passionate about mental health, but I think what really hit me was watching my fellow classmates and my good friends really struggle with themselves, especially when it came to academics. As we all know, Singapore is all about the grades and everything, but I think it was so sad and it was so hard for me to watch them destroy themselves over their grades. Like, I've seen countless of times just my friends breaking down in the bathrooms and everything, just crying over a number on a piece of paper. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous, and they would just destroy themselves. They would start self-harming. Like, there were some extreme cases where they started self-harming and everything. And then, the whole like, oh, I'm depressed and all that. Like, not gonna lie, at the time, I think it became a bit of a trend to be
it is
depressed.
still a trend. Sorry to cut you off. Right? I think it's important to talk about. Like, it is, especially with TikTok or some mediums now.
Definitely.
There is an attention deficit, right? And when I can't remember the term off the top of my head, but it's research that when you put your struggles online, you're more likely to get validated.
Yeah.
And that validation, sometimes people crave it.
Yeah.
So we're not sure whether we're romanticizing it or whether we're actually depressed, and it's hard to find that balance sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a big issue, not gonna lie, because then it kind of blurs the line between who really needs help and who, I guess, needs more short-term help. I'm not gonna say that.
They need help for sure. Let's not judge them.
Yeah,
right? For them to
definitely.
do that.
It's like I'm sure they're going through something that where they feel the need to have some kind of attention, because things like this usually is kind of a cry for help. And a lot of people label it as attention seeking, although it is true they are seeking attention, but sometimes there is a good reason behind why they're seeking attention. And don't want to judge anyone. Everybody is probably going through some hardships of their own. But seeing a lot of people in my school do that, I think was pretty eye-opening, and it made me realize how much mental health is a big problem everywhere. No matter how old you are, no matter what you're doing, it's always a big problem. And I think I really became passionate for it pretty recently, honestly, after dealing with some hard stuff on my own, and dealing with some things a lot of my friends had to go through. It was really hard for me to see them put themselves in harm's way just for things that personally I find a bit superficial, but of course to them it probably holds a lot of meaning. Yeah, it was just really, really hard, and I've always thought to myself, like, I wish I could do more to help them. And I guess I did it through supporting my friends. But then I would see, people obviously online, like you mentioned, I would see them struggling with whatever they're going through. And then sometimes I wish, like, if I was there, I would probably give this person a hug. And then that kind of sparked, that desire to want to try to help people through their struggles.
I think, of course, rebound resilience also. I mean, this, I cannot be biased or favoritism here. I'm posting everybody, but this is about mental health and something that I probably resonate with most of all the episodes, because my company is built around that, right? I host a podcast dedicated to that. Personally, I suffered from depression and mania before, and I understand fully, right, how much grades or some arbitrary number or measure can affect your worth to the degree that it impacts your mental health.
It's crazy.
And you see, and because our worth, we're designed and conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to a variable. Anytime your worth is tied to a variable, right, it's dangerous, because those variables can vary anytime.
Exactly.
And in our national narrative, right, certain traits like ambition, good results, intelligence, it's seen perhaps as more valuable in inverted commas. So when you don't measure up to that, right, you feel a sense of inferiority.
Yeah, you feel like a failure, honestly.
How did that feel when you saw your friends go through that? Was there any emotions that, like, I know it's difficult to watch people go through struggles. If there's any vocabulary you could put to it, how could you describe it?
Oh, it was honestly heart-wrenching. I think seeing some of my friends go through what they go through. Like, I have some friends who are super, like, perfectionists. And it's to the point where they skip meals, they skip sleep. And I've seen my friends, like, fall asleep with laptops in their hands and wake up with laptops in their hands. And that was terrifying. I think that was honestly the scariest thing I've seen, because once my friend, like, stayed over at my house, and I think it was kind of like it wasn't exactly submission period. So personally, I was a bit chill, but she is so obsessed with work that the whole day that we were spending time with each other, she couldn't get her hands off her laptop. And then when she woke up the next morning, her first instinct was to reach for her laptop and open up her documents to do her work.
Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think that's the case, though?
Okay, I guess I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but it's the whole, I guess, parents and their expectations, and obviously wanting to achieve success. And I think there's this generalized view of success, which is, get good grades, do well, go to uni. After you go uni, then you work, you make a lot of money. So there's this, like, predetermined path that they create in their head. And then there's all these small steps that they plan for themselves. So for example, now, like, they are focused on getting a 4.0 GPA. And then so they destroy themselves getting this 4.0 GPA. And when they don't get it, they destroy themselves even more. Then they think that they're going to fail at life. They just think that, that this path that they've built for themselves is ruined. And they think that they just basically have failed at life. For some reason, they cannot think of any other possible route that exists.
Sure.
And I think there are a lot of these paths that exist that isn't just, getting a good GPA and then going to uni and then doing all these things that maybe you see successful people do. Yeah,
it starts with how you define success, right? Exactly. If you define in a way that's very strict and very narrow, very tunnel vision, naturally when you fall away from the ideal becomes a judge. Every ideal is a judge. And if you cannot manage that properly, you cannot see a different route, it really cripples you. Because in your mind, you personalize it and you think it's pervasive. Yeah. You think that catastrophize, right? You think that no matter what, your life can't be good. I did not plan this, but I want to pull out my phone. Because I have a quote that I want to read. Hopefully can encourage people to relate to this, right?
Let's go.
It's actually a quote by Conan O'Brien. It's not very mainstream, but he's one of my favorite comedians because he's a goofy dude. And sometimes I also
I saw this on your story.
Yeah. Correct. So let me pull this out. I think some context, right? Conan O'Brien, he was a late night talk show. He was promised a certain role in television and he wasn't given it. So basically he was betrayed, and whatever he wanted, he built his entire life for that particular moment. Okay, and because he didn't got that, he got into a state of wallowing where he grew a beard and he just wallowed for a period of time. Right? That loss or that sense of control is lost. So he ultimately, when he overcame it, he gave a speech, and this is what he said. It is our failure to become our perceived ideal that ultimately defines us and makes us unique. it is not easy, but if you accept your misfortune and handle it right, your perceived failure can become a catalyst for profound reinvention. And this is one message I know you want to put out as well. So I'll share it also on your behalf, is that students, they need to know that one event will never ever define your entire life.
Exactly.
Right? If it is, then there's no point really, because everything happens in the past, doesn't make a difference.
Exactly.
But honestly, if you look back 2 years down before, just 2 years, not very long, right? Will you be thinking you're doing exactly the same thing you're doing now? Probably not. There's some variation, right? The form is a little bit different. Maybe the course is similar, but the form is very different. Same thing for you as well. And same thing for 2 years down the road. And I think that is why stories are powerful, because you get to write your story. You get to rewrite it. You're not necessarily fixed on one narrative. Sorry I took up so much of your time, Maressa. Henny, I'm going to turn it back to you, but I hope that related to you. If you want to listen to the commencement speech, I will also link it into the YouTube description. You'll check it out. I think it's very powerful. But coming back to the podcast, so what about your own journey then? You talk a lot about others, right? What about your own journey with mental health?
Okay, I do share a bit of it on Share Your Story as well, but okay, just want to put it out there. I'm not like officially diagnosed. I've never seen anyone for this. I've attempted to see people for this, but it's just never really worked out. So I like to say I have some form of anxiety. Okay, I'm just gonna call it social anxiety, because a lot of the anxiety I feel is normally relating to social situations. So I do experience a lot of nausea and oftentimes vomiting. So I guess a big part of my like mental health journey was like shrouded in a lot of shame, because vomiting, no one likes that. It's kind of gross, kind of like, but it's what I experienced. So every time I would have this like anxiety within me, I just felt so disgusted with myself. I felt a lot of shame, and even just trying to talk to someone about it like brought me a lot of shame. So I always try not to talk about it, which is why actually putting out that first episode with me talking about my social anxiety was really, really hard. I put it off for like 1 or 2 months, even though I was supposed to do it earlier, but it was just really hard for me to talk about it. And actually when I went out there and I started talking about it, it did kind of help me to heal within myself. It kind of helped me to process all the struggles that I've gone through within my life and things that I realized affected me more than I thought it did. And just speaking about it in front of some strangers actually was quite relieving. Like, I realized that actually, you know what, it's not really that big of a deal.
It's liberating as well.
Yeah, it's very liberating. You realize that no one really judges you as much as you think. Although, I mean, they probably do, but ignorance is bliss,
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. A lot of times the emotions reflected, right?
Yeah.
You feel people out and you act in a certain way, and you also attract that as well, because they're wondering, hey, how come this person is acting, is like giving off the impression that we are judging them.
Yeah.
Or giving off the impression that she's fearful of judgment.
Exactly.
So, sure, thanks for being authentic, sharing with me. I love the platform. We'll talk about it in a bit.
Yeah.
But I want to go back a bit about, you did share with me off camera about the time where your friend actually attempted suicide and it woke you up.
Yeah.
You just felt that sense of helplessness. Could you share about that?
Yeah, so, okay. This friend, she attempted suicide. And not gonna lie, it wasn't very shocking to me because I didn't know about her suicidality. I didn't know she was having suicidal thoughts. So yeah, I knew about her suicidality, but I didn't really know that I didn't really expect that she was gonna go through with it. So when she did, and I saw that she was in hospital, I PM'd her directly and I asked her what was going on. She was a bit hesitant to tell me what was going on, but then I kind of knew in the back of my mind that she probably attempted suicide. So not gonna lie, I felt numb. Okay, I don't know if you can call it numb or just didn't feel anything, but yeah, I didn't really feel much. Honestly, I was just a bit angry at her as well, I think, because I was just thinking like, oh, why would you do this, after everything that we've been through and me trying to show you how much I care for you, like, why do you still go through this? But then I think after I went for some counseling at school, and then I actually started talking about it. Instead of just thinking about it in my mind, I actually put it into
Verbalize it,
words.
yeah.
I put it into words, and that's when I started crying. And that's when I realized that actually this traumatic event was affecting me more than I thought it did. And that's when I really woke up, I think, and realized that, you know, this is a problem that needs to be solved. This isn't just, you know, everyone's like, oh, mental health is an issue, mental health is an issue. Yeah. It's an issue, and it takes people's lives, you know. Like, this is something that needs to be stopped as soon as possible, I feel. And okay, but at the same time, it also allowed me to learn that what she does with her life is out of my control. And it helped to teach me that I also need to let go, and that me constantly, I guess, mothering her in a sense wasn't really helping her either. Okay. And that I needed to step back and also take care of myself and my own mental health, because otherwise I would just be destroying myself and her as well.
Okay. Let's transition into solving a need. Yes, I think we definitely need to know when to let go, but I do believe that you mentioned when the time is right to do something right, I think we should do it. Really extend that support, that love to people. And you did that eventually by jumping into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Talk to us about how that happened.
Okay, so Kevin called it accidental entrepreneurship. I want to call it a reluctant a reluctant accident into entrepreneurship. I really tripped and fell into it. Yeah. So, okay, it all started with this kind of like in-school competition called Betty Challenge. So what we do is that it's basically a 3-day hackathon where we, you know, they give us a few categories, and then within these categories we choose what we want to work on. I guess it's an entrepreneurial project, and then we have to pitch our ideas at the end of the 3 days, and then, you know, if we win first place we get money, second place get money, then there's like runner-up and everything. So me and my friends, we entered into this competition based on a recommendation of my lecturer. So he kind of pushed me. Actually, he asked me twice. I rejected him the first time because I knew, I was like, nah, I don't want to do this. Then the second time he asked me, I was like, God, he's pressuring me, but okay, you know what, I just got to do it, you know, what could I lose? So I brought myself and my team, and then we went to do it. And then, so there was this topic, okay, there were multiple topics, and then one of them was about, I think, being inclusive when it comes to mental health, something like that. So we decided, like, you know what, since we, like, myself and my other teammates have experience in struggles with mental health, you know, why not we just try this? But we didn't do it thinking that, you know, let's go and make this a business. We're just like, let's go and win some money, you know, $2,000, let's go. So then we did it. And then at the end of it, we lost. So
I expected you to have a grand finale.
No,
you said we lost with such purpose.
$300. I think it was $300.
That's still fine. That's still fine.
It was somewhere around there. It was enough to pay off for our hot pot meal that day.
I see. So you spend it immediately on a hot pot meal. Dude, fantastic use of money there.
If it was $2,000, we would have saved it. You know, built an empire. We could have built an empire. This is all because we lost.
We just stay over at MBS. Spend the 2K.
You know, priorities, right?
Yeah, but anyway, so I mean, that was the first foray into entrepreneurship. But how did that evolve to become a prototype?
So, okay, basically after we lost, we met up with the... Okay, so I don't know his title. I don't know if he's the manager. He's definitely not the director, but his name's Raphael. So at the end of the...
I was wondering who you're talking about. Then suddenly become Raphael. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we all know him because he's in episode 1.
Episode 1, that guy, the man with the bald head. Yeah, that man. So at the end of the competition, one of the lecturers who facilitated the whole thing was like, oh, if any of y'all are interested in making this a real thing, then you guys can go and talk to Raphael. You know, he'll tell you guys what you need to do. Sure. So us with our newfound, you know, anger and everything, we're like, I hate these people here, I hate the judges, hate everybody. We're gonna prove to everyone that we can do this by making it into a real thing. Nice. So then we marched up to Raphael and we're like, hey, you know, we want to make this into a real thing. How do we do it? So he basically brought us to this room where we're at right now, and it was pretty shady because it was pretty dark at the time. So he brought
I
us
love your storytelling, by the way. It's in perfectly in line over
exactly,
here.
share your story. So he brought us to this shady, like the back of the room. He sat us down and then he started asking us to all of a sudden just pitch again. So we pitched again, told him our idea. And then he just pointed out everything that was wrong with it. So yeah, you know, it really gave us that boost of confidence we needed. But yeah, but at the end of it, he just told us like, you know, if you guys are serious about this, then think about it and then contact us again. Then you guys will be able to pitch for this thing called the Small Project Fund, where you guys can earn some funding and then you guys can really try to make your business idea a real thing.
Okay.
So we walked out of that room. I said, no way, Jose, are we doing this? I ain't got the time. I ain't got the effort. Like, I don't think I want to do business, guys.
This is such a contrast to Dylan's episode. But yeah, it's just very variety here, you know. It's some relatability.
Entrepreneurship has lots of variety. So yeah, I personally didn't want to do it at all because I knew it would take a lot of effort. I didn't underestimate entrepreneurship at all. But my friends and my teammates were like, you know what? We got this. Let's do it. I'm sure we can make something out of this. You know, be our own bosses, whatever. You know, that's what attracts everyone about entrepreneurship, to be your own boss. You know, make all those, you know, all that money. But there's a lot of hard work that goes behind it. So on behalf of my team, I went to Raphael and then pitched for the Small Project Fund, and thankfully we got it, $4,000, baby. But yeah, so that's how I actually started doing my internship under entrepreneurship, under SPINOFF. Yeah.
Okay, so Marissa, you were a reluctant entrepreneur, but you still got started. Right? I want to know about your journey still. Like, what are some challenges in the growth process? Or what are some lessons you learned?
Okay, so I think for me the hardest thing about doing entrepreneurship was because I was always so reluctant to associate myself with anything business. So I really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know where to start, where to end, or what the hell happens in between. But I decided to, you know, just go in with some blind faith and just try things out. So yeah, it was really very hard to change my mindset because when I was pitching Share Your Story, like when I was like,
nothing wrong with that, by the way. Go ahead.
When I was pitching Share Your Story, I pitched it as a mobile app that we would develop. So in my mind, going to my entrepreneurship was that I have to get this app out. My main focus is going to be the app. So, but obviously I can't be like doing my app for 6 months, right? I have to be doing other things at the same time. So like that was a very hard mindset of mine to change, because I was so determined, like, you know, by the end of 6 months, gonna have an app out, gonna have everything. But after I talked to Raphael and after I did some mentorship of my own, I realized that was a bit of an impossible dream, because it's gonna be very hard with the budget that I had. Especially with the budget that I had, there was no way I was gonna get it out in 6 months. So I settled for MVP, and even at the time, my my liaison officer, who's actually my lecturer, who's kind of like supervising me during my internship, he told me that I had to be more flexible with my thinking. I had to set small goals for myself, which I was very, very bad at, because I'm kind of the person who, like, I just set one big goal and I work towards it. Whatever happens, happens. So setting those small goals were really hard for me. And flexible thinking was very hard for me. That was one thing I needed to work on during my internship. And that was one thing I especially learned, that things can change and things will change even if you don't want them to change. And you have to learn to adapt and be flexible and, you know, solve problems along the way. And that, I think one big thing for me was the fact that I equated, you know, like me having to change my plans into me failing. If I had to change my strategies, if I had to change my plans, it meant that I failed. But that just wasn't the case, you know. Like, sometimes things don't work out, and that's okay. And I just need to see how I can work around these problems so that I'll be able to achieve whatever it is I want to achieve at the end. And I think another important thing was that goals can change. Not just the way you do things can change, but the end goals can change.
Talked about this just now.
Yeah. End goals changing was a very big thing for me. Like I said, I always thought that if things change, that means I failed. That means I'm a failure. That means I'm never going to succeed in life and everything. That whole regular, like, Singaporean student mindset. So that was something I needed to be okay with. And I think what really helped me through it was seeking validation from people. So I think because, like, a part of my whole anxiety is that I just, like, think about all the worst case scenarios. I think that, if I do this, so-and-so is going to hate me. If I do this, my license officer, he's going to fail me for my internship.
Okay.
So when I actually went and I talked to him about it, I was like, you know what? I really don't know what I'm doing. And I feel that, I might have to change my end goal. And, like, what do you think about that? And he's like, yeah, that's fine.
Surprisingly, he's okay?
Yeah, he was totally chill with it. So was Raphael. He's very chill with it. They're, like, I think they really helped me out a lot. And it helped put my mind at ease, knowing that they were willing to work with me.
Nice.
I didn't have to just work per their orders. We were kind of like a team and we worked
listen
together.
to you, they empathize with you, even after you call him a random ball man. But I guess the random ball man became a
it's okay,
kind of a
he
mentor
makes fun
to
of
you.
himself. So.
I know. I'm just a very kid. He's a chill dude. I mean, he's an amazing person. But I guess looking back, you would not have changed that. You would not have said. Question is like, going back in time, would you have still done it?
This whole entire entrepreneurship project? That's actually a hard question because
You gotta say yes for the sake of this podcast.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. I would go back
You still
I
have
would
done
go
it.
back and do it again.
But I mean, come on, if you didn't do it,
Okay,
share your story
I
would
think
have
I would have done it eventually, but
Yeah.
I think the way that I would have done it would be a bit
Slightly
different. Yeah.
nothing wrong, but I would say that I would argue that, I mean, tell me if you agree with this, right? Is that the lessons you learn, you're grateful for it.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's infinite. We talked about this in the first episode, how, you might take on a different form. Learning might take on, success might take on a different form, right? Like what Raphael said is who you become in the process, not just what you get from it. That's one of the biggest values of entrepreneurship. Resonate with that completely. Let's transition into the final part about storytelling. I want to talk about your current platform. Of course, it evolved. Now you're running it as a page. Not necessarily monetizing it yet, but really using it as a platform to serve people. Still very much into the cause about mental health. Share with us about Share Your Story. What is it about? And just briefly share what it's about first.
Okay, so Share Your Story is basically, now we are a platform whereby we share people's stories. It's pretty self-explanatory. So our kind of main target is now youths, because we want to shed light more on the mental health of youths right now. And we just kind of like, our content is really centered around sharing stories, and we invite various youths who are willing to share their story, and we film with them and we kind of publicize their story, because we want to destigmatize mental health and we want to share with others what exactly is the lived experience of these people. Because, for example, you just hear the word depression, you just think, oh, someone is sad, but that's not the case, you know. And someone with depression, they'll sit down and tell you what it's like for them. And I think that's the power of storytelling. That's a very important thing that we all need to know, is that just because, with sharing the story, right, we can connect on a human level to a shared experience. Yeah, that's the most important thing that I think Share Your Story tries to drive home. We kind of want to build empathy within our audience, because even if you don't have a mental illness or if you don't struggle with mental health, we want you to be able to empathize with these people and their struggles. We want you to feel for them and understand what their life is like, so that, maybe one day when you do encounter someone with this mental illness, you know how to better help them.
That's a powerful introduction. Why are stories so powerful?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, storytelling helps to connect to a shared experience. And I think storytelling just in anything is very powerful. For example, when it comes to pitching, one of the big things that I learned was that storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to be able to connect with your audience and to be able to get your audience to empathize with you. And that's exactly what we wanted to do with Share Your Story. And we believe that storytelling can help to open up the conversation around mental health, and that's kind of our main goal. We want to be able to share more about mental health, and we want people to learn more about mental health. But I think one of the first things that people need to do is be willing to hear the stories and be willing to learn and understand from these people's perspectives. That's why kind of originally it was called Share Your Story, inspiring others through the stories. And I've had some people DM me with the fact that they're bothered by the use of the word inspiring, because they were saying that, why are people's struggles why are mental health stories only used to serve as an inspiration for others? But I think the word inspiration is kind of more of a general term, you know. Even like I'm not out here publicizing kind of mental health success stories, like someone has overcome, you know, they're living a great life. I'm sharing the stories of real people who go through real things and might now still be struggling with their mental health. But even through their struggles, right, I think people can be inspired from it and learn that, you know, these people are strong, and if they can be strong for themselves, I can also be strong through my struggles.
Fair enough. What has been the most rewarding part of telling and listening to people's stories?
I think one of the most rewarding part is not really about the attention that my platform gets, but it's me or my crew interacting with whoever we invite on to share their story. I think it's so much fun, like having someone sit there, and it's so fascinating, you know, someone sitting there being vulnerable with themselves to someone that they've never met before. You know, I probably just met them on that day itself. And they're telling me their life's journey with mental health, which is probably one of the most vulnerable things anyone can do. And I'm just so fascinated, you know, because I feel that normally I just kind of go through life a bit, not like numb, but, you know, I don't really feel any range of emotions.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and then once they tell their story, wow, you just feel so many things all at once. And it's the most interesting feeling and the most inspiring feeling ever. Like you said about the whole locking eyes thing. Yeah, and you just know that you guys are on the same frequency. Even though, like, for example, I've interviewed people with BPD. I've never had BPD. And when they tell their story, I'm just like, I feel as if I'm there with them through their struggles. And it makes me cry a little bit sometimes, you know, like hearing the things they have to say.
Out of solidarity, right? Out of empathy, there are different kinds of tears, what I've realized. But when you shed tears with someone else, regardless of what the form takes, it is powerful. And I encourage all of you to tell your own stories. In fact, I think this leads to the last message. Of course, follow a platform, that's one message. But last message for students, okay, who want to tell their story, who want to share their passion, but they're stifling it out of fear. What advice do you have for them?
Honestly, like Nike says, just do it. Like, really, I think another thing that entrepreneurship has taught me to do is to just do it. There's honestly not much that you can lose from just trying to do something. Of course, obviously, if it's something that has a lot of consequences, you know, you might want to weigh things out, but just try. Just be willing to try, be willing to fail, and be willing to accept this failure, get up and try again. I think, you know, we always fantasize about the worst possible scenarios, but you'll never know for sure if they will actually come true or not if you don't try. And when you try, you actually realize that even if you do fail, there's so many things that you learn through this failure, and they're so invaluable.
Love it. Let me end off also with my own appeal to people. As someone that's passionate about mental health and stories, it is in our interest, it's in your interest and mental health, right, to tell your story. Right? There is nothing more stifling than a suppressed story, nothing more draining than keeping your light hidden, and nothing more painful than taking your story to the grave. Regret is a poison, and I think if you're hearing this and this speaks to you, right, go out there and tell your story. You know, live it out, and I believe that in your own telling your own story, you inspire others to tell theirs. In your own resilience, you inspire others to tap into their resiliency.
Exactly.
Thank you, Maressa, for today's episode. It's a pleasure talking to you. Pleasure talking to you, and your storytelling is fantastic.
Thank you very much.
I love listening to you telling your stories about entrepreneurship and how you describe people in situations. Subscribe, okay, y'all. If you like this episode, I hope you learn from it. Share it if you want. Again, SPINOFF is open for applications if you want to come and, you know,
$4,000.
Yeah, I want to get money funding and tell your story, you know, to put out your content out there. With that, okay, we have come to the end of today's episode. See you in the next episode, and stay resilient as always.
Share your story.
And share your story. Bye.